Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast, hosted by yours truly, Misty Magdalena Grace, also known as Magical Mags. I am an abundance alchemist, helping you alchemize fear into love, pain into purpose, scarcity or lack into abundance, so that you can live your best life, your best health, your best wealth, your best relationships by trusting your best wisdom within. Please enjoy the show, like and subscribe, and leave a review if you see value in this amazing show. And feel free to stay in till the end. You may have a surprise gift waiting for you on the other side of this episode. Hey everyone, welcome back. Happy Thanksgiving week here in America. At this time of this recording, I am excited to be going into a holiday weekend. So I'm saying that also, just warning you, especially if you're watching the video, you may see people in the background. You may hear dogs. This is the beauty of working from home. And I'm actually traveling right now, enjoying some time away, but I was really excited to get this timely message out to the public. So here we are, living life on the road and just wanting to talk to you about ancestral alchemy. And I'm excited. If this is your first time, welcome. Again, Misty Magdalena Grace. If you like what you see today and hear, please hit the subscribe button, the notification bell. We want to get more people's eyeballs on this conversation, because more and more people are waking up and remembering who they truly are. And we are really, truly our ancestors at this time on the planet. I believe, as an alchemist and as a spiritual teacher, I have seen it, I have lived it from the inside out. As above, so below, as within, so without. We are fully human, fully divine creatures waking up to that realization right now. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and you're like, this lady's kind of weird, that's okay. But if you feel in your bones or your central nervous system that something that we say today resonates, please stick around for the whole show. We do have some free gifts for you at the end. It may shift your holiday season. That's why I wanted to get this out before Thanksgiving here in America, as we head into Christmas and all these different, Jewish holidays. And even if you don't celebrate, maybe the holidays are challenging for you, like they were for me. I had a really deep religion wound for a really long time, and I actually hated this time of year because of that. Being the black sheep of my family, feeling outcasted, all of these things. I talk to more and more of you out there, and a lot of you are experiencing some of that same energy. And so we want to bring you hope today. We want to bring you maybe some kind of seeds that plant a different way of thinking and seeing about who you are, why you're here, and what may be your karmic soul path and ancestral path into your dharmic path, your true nature and purpose, really allowing you to let your freak flag fly, as I like to say. So today I'm going to dive in. We're having one part teaching, one part testimonial, and we're going to be talking about an exciting challenge that Ali and I are partnering up with in December. So Ali Wilks, thank you so much, all the way from Canada, eh? She's this is the first time she's been on my podcast. I'm so excited. She works with women in holistic practice with mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional focus. She calls herself a medicine mother. She taps into the mothering energy. She herself is a mom and a stepmom. And, oh, by the way, 25 years in social work, working with family and generational trauma. So, Ali, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your story and how you came to find me, and then we'll dive into more.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It was an easy yes to say, I'm going to come up on the show and do a testimonial for you. So thank you so much for having me. A little bit about my story. Actually, my story began with medicine and finding you as a result of my work with medicine. And first experience, basically opportunities created this pivot point for me in terms of, we were talking about generational trauma and how my whole life has been about healing generational trauma and really truly about healing the child. So I think I may have told you I have my master's degree in family. It looked like our camera disappeared there for a second. I don't know if that was on my end or your end. Sorry about that. Anyway,
go ahead.
so initially I wanted to start working with children, but I realized that having that work with children and then putting them back in a home environment just wasn't going to work. So then I moved to working with families and family studies. And like I said, over time, working 25 years in children's services, child protection area, foster families, adoptive families, and then doing my own personal work, like I said, led me to doing the medicine. And so the medicine led me to you. And really, truly, because of that first experience where it was like, yep, everything that you've been doing up until this point was purposeful and meaningful. So now you got to go deeper. And so divine timing as it was, I found you so that I could do the generational stuff much, much deeper. And so you and I started doing some work in the early spring, and then we just kind of kept building and building and building on the work that we're doing, both personally in your guidance, as well as in the business building, which I really, truly love. Yeah.
Awesome. And, there's a lot of people here who don't really understand ancestral trauma and the why behind it. I'd like for you to share in your own words why you were drawn to working at the ancestral level. Feel free to, leverage your career experience because you've done decades of this kind of stuff in the quote unquote 3D world, right? And families and all of that. You've seen the damage. We'll talk a little bit about our own personal stories too, but why is ancestral trauma helping you? Why is it important? And maybe define it in your own way.
Okay. So for me, I like you mentioned, the 3D world is where I was working in working with the generational trauma, and we're talking like decades back. So we actually, in my area of work, was working with Indigenous families too, and the colonialism and all of those pieces, which really kind of paved the way for me and how I saw my ancestral lineage. So my ancestors are the Dutch, and they're from Netherlands, and I'm first generation Canadian. And I started even years back, Magdalena, I started seeing how the colonialism of my country, my home country, well, not home country because home country is Canada, but I'm just ancestral home country, how colonialism was very much a big part of my history. And so we're talking colonialism through South America, not as much South America, but they call it the Dutch East Indies. So Bali, Jakarta, and all of those areas, as well as Africa. So for me, that was already the pull, but I just didn't know. I just didn't know about the ancestral piece, the beyond the 3D, what I've learned. And so what I really started learning was when I was working with foster families and adoptive families in the training, I started seeing spiritual imprinting and how it's an energy imprinting. And again, I was looking for a teacher, but didn't really know that those pieces were as pertinent until I discovered my work with you. And for me, ancestral relations, or ancestral trauma, rather, not ancestral relations, ancestral trauma is an energetic and blood imprint that we carry forth from our ancestors. And it can go back hundreds of years. In my experience, it's going back quite far. And so when I take a look at my present life, and look at how I have anxiety, I've dealt with depression, how I am in relationship with my daughters, how I was in relationship with my stepdaughter, how I'm currently in relationship with my husband, how those ancestral wounds that I carry forth from regarding anxiety and some of the depression, not so much addiction per se, but that's something we'll talk about later. And how those relationship wounds get imprinted from one generation to the next. So from going back to my mom and my dad, how they did relationships, how they did worthiness issues in particular. That's the piece that I work on a lot with women. How our worthiness issues and wounding gets passed on through the generations. So I looked back at my mom, I looked back at my grandmother, and I'm just beginning to explore that in a deeper way, again, with you. So that's a little bit about a small snippet of the work that I'm doing with you, and also the work that I'm therefore carrying forward into the work I'm doing with the women that I serve and support.
Beautiful. Yeah. With what I've shared with people, I go back thousands of years. And if you want to get really weird, which of course I do, we get into your galactic starseed family. We won't talk about that today because that's a little bit, it's different, but similar, different. At the end of the day, like for me, knowing that it took at least 4,000 men and women, right, on both sides of our lineage to come together to create you, to create me. And history has repeated itself for thousands and thousands of years. And we're on a path of heading into the golden age. And within that golden age, you know, we're waking up to the age of Aquarius and unconditional love and coming back to our truth, knowing that we're fully human and fully divine. So hold that thought, people. However, our ancestors back in the day, they were raping and pillaging, taking control, power over, greed, and forcefully converting our people, our ancestors, into different religions, as just one example, because we could be here for 5 days talking about this topic. So when I turned to medicine work and I turned to calling upon my ancestors, recognizing that I was breaking cycles, I was the family member that said, okay, hey, I'm here to break cycles of addiction, autoimmune disease, divorce even, and healing it to a place where I can come back to love, unconditional. But my ancestors teed me up and teed you up too. And I think you can speak to your story here next about how, you know, when the Christians came and forcefully converted my pagan ancestors and said, you either die or you convert, right? So what are you going to choose? You know, some of them chose death and a lot of them chose life, but then they ultimately, and they have proof of this in Germany and different European countries where the pagan, those that chose to stay pagan and ended up dying of starvation, they go and look at the bones that they buried. They dig them up and the bones are like really frail, really a lot smaller than the ones that were buried in the Christian graveyards. So if that doesn't tell you something, right? Feast or famine, where did that phrase come from? Well, guess what? Our ancestors, and a lot of them tried to escape. The black sheep of our lineages escaped to UK, yours to Canada, mine to America. But guess what? Wherever you go, there you are. Epigenetics has proven this, science and spirituality. It's a thing where if you believe in reincarnation or not, you don't have to understand that we have ancestral stuff, gunk inside of our DNA, our blood, our bones, our organs. They've shown this to be true. I'm not going to get into all the science and the weeds of it, but when you and I, you know, are born into these families where there's fight or flight trauma response, there's freeze, there's fawn, there's I'm not enough, I'm not worthy. It didn't just start with us. And I know you, and I've realized, like, I was raised in foster care. You've helped serve in foster care. So I chose the right family. I chose, because I believe we choose our family of origin, and we are our ancestors. Because of that reason, we came back to heal what they couldn't, because they didn't have the tools. It was a different astrological time, a different age, Piscean age. Before that, the Aries age, and it was, a lot of it was about power over greed, patriarchy. And so now the divine feminine is coming back, which is why you call yourself the cosmic mother. You're a medicine mother. We're trying to right that ship of bringing in the love, the compassion, and all of that, and balancing that hieroskamos that Carl Jung talks about, the feminine and the masculine hemispheres in our brain. And remember that who are our feminine and masculine examples? Our mom and our dad. And who are their examples? Their mom and their dad. And again, 4,000 plus people back. So we keep repeating things over and over again, expecting a different result. And people wonder why the world is in the state that it is it's because we're trying to break free from that issue. So I'm going to take a pause because that was a lot. I'd love for you to share from your own perspective, your own lineage, and maybe even a little bit more of what you experienced at the retreat to help you, have the unconscious become conscious so that you can heal yourself, and by so doing heal your lineage.
And so for me, just even learning about the ancestry and going back deeper and deeper and deeper was something new. And so, as I mentioned, I was doing a lot of that work in the D, working with people in that perspective around child protection and moving into foster care and all of those pieces. So I learned a lot about what happens in the body, what happens in the brain, and those pieces. But I think that openness and that curiosity and questioning about, okay, so how big of a part does this actually play? Like, how deep can we go? How far back can we go? And again, you're looking for the teacher, and the teacher arrives. So that was you. And so this ancestral piece really has been coming through much more on a much deeper and even a much more physical perspective. I would say, not just with the retreat, of course, that was a big, nice turning point for me, but back when you and I started working in the microdosing and I started feeling things coming up. So truly the medicine was a big shift for me and brought that what is in the unconscious to be more conscious for me. And so I feel like it's kind of like I'm stacking, right? I'm learning something, I stack. I'm learning something, I stack. And then the medicine is showing me those pieces of the unconscious that I wasn't aware of. And so when it came to the retreat itself, it was really interesting. It wasn't specific ancestral related. It was about the sister wound that came up for me. But then after, in these subsequent weeks after the retreat, I started seeing how the sister wound that I had about not trusting other women really does go back to the things that my mom did in her friendships, female friendships, even with her own sister, and how that tied back to her relationship with her mom. And so for me, honestly, I believe that I'm still in this unpacking and discovering and looking around the corners and checking kind of the cobwebs of Ali's ancestry. I do believe that, it's layer by layer, and we come when we're ready to come to it. But truly, I think for me, just beginning to really learn how much the ancestral wounding shows up in my life right now. So in my life right now, with my relationships, as I said, with my daughters, relationship with my husband, and even how it shows up in my work as an entrepreneur working with women. It's definitely that whole mirroring piece. So you bring those relationships into your world to teach you things, to take a look at the places where you may not be looking. So truly, living with my daughters is really truly a life lesson. These are the teachers that are here for me right now. And my relationship right now with my husband too. It's you don't have to look far to see the teachers that are available to you. And truly, if you and I've talked about this so many times, I cannot lead people where I have not been. And for me, it is doing that work. If I'm going to be leading women through, worthiness wounds, and that's something that you and I have worked on. If I'm going to lead women through sisterhood wounds, that's something that I need to be working on. And you and I have discovered that just by having these discussions and working with the medicine and doing the retreats, how my sisterhood wounds kind of reflected back some of the things that were going on for you, which is truly where that medicine and the magic does happen. But honestly, what's kind of unpacked over the last few months of working with you and meeting you and being in your personal space and all of those beautiful things is how those ancestral wounds, those generational trauma wounds, those intergenerational trauma wounds really are coming to the surface right now for that healing. And honestly, you and I talked about this. I met my grandmother from like 2,000 years ago, and she told me, we were waiting for you at this moment to be here right now. I mean, you hear that cliche term, but it's very true. She told me this. And so she's very much a part of my movement forward. I know that she's there supporting me. I met my grandfather from around the same time, not related, not married or any of that, but I met that in my preparation for the retreat, because you and I had talked about, I'd been seeking and asking for support from my ancestors, and seeking, asking, but not really feeling them. And then, like the week before the retreat, as part of the preparation, they rushed in like through an open door. And truly, I've never felt more loved and supported as a result of that. Like, I don't feel alone anymore. Anything and everything that comes up for me now is because I know that they're there supporting me, and they're there to point things out to me that I might be missing. So beautifully, the ancestral stuff and the present moment stuff is just really all happening all at the same time. And now I have the tools to be able to do that because of the work that we've done together.
Beautiful. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to remind people, if you've never done ancestral work, I do have some great books that I recommend to people. If you don't want to work with me, I do have a free gift at the end of the show about ancestral regression, and how to connect with your ancestors. I was blocked by my ancestors, a shaman told me, and then 6 months later, boom, they came in loud and clear. And then I asked and started working with them almost on a daily basis. I was essentially forced into it by my ancestors. They're a little direct. When they're ready, they're blunt. And ever since then, now I've been able to get to the root causes of most of my issues. I'm only 48 years old. I've got work to do. I'm humble enough to recognize I'm far from complete. But I did want to acknowledge one of our audience members, Ashraf from Bangladesh. Just want to welcome you. Did have a question around activities. So basically breaking the chain. Yes. Like stopping smoking and taking care of health for long living. Yes. So we are going to talk about our break free challenge here at the end of our show, but that's a good little segue, and it is indirectly connected to the sister wound. So I'm trying to like bring all the pieces here together. So I shut down my feminine. It was actually part of my ancestral trauma. A lot of women in my family, pardon the expression, they would grow a penis or two, and had to be really hard working farm wives, and, very religious, very devout, kind of really stoic, serious. You almost never saw a picture of them smiling. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. And so it was always kind of like a colder, darker, like almost, patriarchal energy that I was raised by. And I was raised in and out of foster care by grandparents and aunties and uncles and all of this kind of stuff. So I was surrounded with that energy of, you got to work hard. You can't, suck it up, buttercup. You can't cry. You can't be emotional. That's, a female, soft, weak thing to do. Both men and women thought that, right? So I oftentimes felt like I was too much. So when I got married to someone who said that I was too much, which was exactly who I needed to marry to mirror my ancestral wounding, right? And my childhood wounding, then I shut down. And the first thing I did was shut down my feminine, soft, compassionate, but also fiery, fierce, Kalima, ferocious kind of energy. All women have that. We are the creative forces. We give birth, right? And unfortunately, that caused me to have a lot of superficial female relationships. I hated all women's groups. I was really struggling with all of that. And again, it goes back to the patriarchy, to just not be yourself, not let your freak flag fly. You got to follow the rules, be a good girl. All of these conditioned things came back from thousands of years ago. Going back to, again, when the Christians converted my ancestors, who were fun and playful, they liked to drink, they liked to have, they were all about war and sex. So they were like into that Freya energy. A lot of them, especially the women, the shield maidens, right? If you're any Viking show fans out there. But when you shut that down, and literally there was a message that came through, like the Christians actually started killing and burning down my family's villages, right? And they associated drinking then with guilt and shame. It's a longer story. And so through that, they abandoned their faith. They abandoned the fun part of alcohol and spirit. They abandoned connecting with all of the gods and goddesses that were part of their pagan heritage. And they became someone they weren't. So what happens then is you abandon through your root chakra is closed. your sacral chakra is blocked, and your solar plexus, the 3 lower chakras, right? And so with all of that, I was born into that because all of our ancestral past life patterning comes in through our root. So I was quote
Mhm.
unquote predisposed to have the sister wound like you. I was predisposed to have quote unquote addictions in my family. I know that wasn't so much on yours, but addictions also show up way more than substance. I just want to put that out there. Anytime you're numbing, escaping, dissociating, avoiding, you're usually going to something that is an addictive behavior, if you want to call it that, as opposed to addiction. So I had all of that inside of my DNA. And until I got to the root cause, root chakra, go way, 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 way back to be like, aha, so this isn't all about me. I didn't do all of this. I got all this patterning in my DNA, and I've had the perfect childhood and the perfect marriage to help me experience that. And so through somatic release, meditation, breath work, plant medicine, all of these kinds of things, I'm not an all or nothing abstinence model person. I respectfully disagree with like the AA community and a lot of those different organizations out there, which, oh, by the way, have really high relapse rates and have a lot of addiction transference because you're not getting to the root cause. So just putting that out there, and I'm going to take a breath because that was a lot. And I'm sure, Ali, you have more to share. But for me, it's about having a breakthrough, how about
Mhm.
being able to be like having that all of a sudden, like your body just sort of like goes like this because you're like, whoa, you have this somatic release. You might cry, you might scream, you're letting it out of your central nervous system. You're opening your chakras, you're cleansing and clearing, especially those lower 3 chakras, because that's where most of the toxic masculine stagnation is housed from our ancestors. And ultimately, that's where you give your power away, you're disempowered. And so addiction, dis-ease, gut issues,
Mhm.
menopause, infertility, all of those things are housed down there. And that's your foundation for the rest of your body and your mind. So your mind is racing and busy and confused because your foundation is not as clear as it needs to be or deserves to be. And again, our ancestors, thank you for allowing us the opportunity in this life to be able to recognize that, to come back to center, to come back to our truth. So I'm done for now. Ali, I'm going to let you take over and share
No, it's
anything else
perfect.
that's coming through for you.
Yeah, because honestly, like I still, like I said, I'm still learning, and that's my truth is that I'm still learning, and I'm in the process of uncovering, as I mentioned before, and through this uncovering, it's that willingness, it's the courage. So that's one of the things that I've been tuning into, and through my ancestral lineage is it's not only the wounding, it's not only the worthiness stuff that I've been working on. It's not just the mistrust of authority figures, or not necessarily, I shouldn't say mistrust. It is handing over your power to the authorities. So the religious leaders, the political leaders. Those are some of the pieces that I'm also working on. And again, unpacking as things are, the more that you're open to learning, for me, truly, the more that comes through for you to work on. And so that's what, again, the piece that I've been working on. But it's not just the wounding, it's the things that they have for us for strength. And that was another piece that came through for me, is the courage that it took for them to come to Canada and leave their country behind, the courage that it took for them to do the work that they do. So also in my family is we're all first responders. So that's an ancestral thing too that I'm really starting to see is, we come in, we're firefighters, we're police officers, child protection workers, emergency medical services. So trying to, again, unpack those pieces has been a fascinating thing. So unpacking this courage stuff and courage to face the fears, and for me facing the unknown of what am I going to discover about what needs to be healed, but fundamentally knowing that I've been chosen. You and I had a discussion about that, is this responsibility that I have, and I'm like, I don't really actually want this anymore. So, and you're like, yeah, but our ancestors have asked us to come into this place in this time, and I'm really feeling that. But knowing that I have the courage of my ancestors to do this work is so truly important for me. And definitely tapping into the courage of the unknown and being in the unknown in this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, you make a good point. I want to mention that if you do feel like you keep hitting your head against the wall, if the same health, wealth, relationship, toxicity keeps repeating itself over and over again, and you're like, I'm done already, I'm done. I just want to go hide in a cave and never come back. Because there's a lot of people like that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, it's most likely your ancestors asking you to heal. So what you resist will
Mm-hmm.
persist. So if you don't answer the call, and it's life is kind of status quo, mediocre, or you're just really dissatisfied, guess what? You're going to repeat it in the next lifetime. So I would encourage you, and this is where we'll sort of start to transition to the Break Free Challenge here as we start to wrap it up, Ali. Really sit with, if you've tried everything else out there, especially we're talking about addictive behaviors, addiction to smoking, vaping, drinking, but also just toxic relationships. Because she talked about the mirroring effect. Yes, it's one part mirror. We have these teachers in our lives, and it's one part central nervous system may also be trying to get your attention too. So I just want to throw that out there. Something more that I've been discovering in the last just 2 months actually
Mm-hmm.
is our body has kept the score and is trying to get to show us something. So if you're struggling with addiction or you're struggling with toxic relationships to men or women or whatever, I know we're speaking mostly to women today because our challenge in December is targeting women. However, it goes both ways because we all have feminine and masculine hemispheres in our brain. We both had a mom and dad, whether you knew them or not, you still have them inside of your blood, your DNA, your central nervous system, your organs, all of that kind of stuff. So it comes with you wherever you go, there you are. Maybe you've tried everything out there.
Mm-hmm.
Check in with me or Ali and let's talk about ancestral stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
with that, what I've learned, and I have 5 core fundamentals that I teach inside of my programming, inside of my retreats, inside of my alchemy mentorships, and inside of this Break Free Challenge. So we're going to really be tuning into meditation, connecting in with your inner higher self, which is connecting you to your ancestors, your soul self, right? We're going to be tuning in with breath work. And Ali, you can talk a little bit about what you're going to talk about too. And within breath work, we can help regulate our central nervous system and get stuff unstuck inside of your body, wherever it may be. We're definitely going to be tapping into the chakras with both of those things as well. Then there's a nutrition component. There's going to be a little bit about that. It's more about daily habits, daily choices. Instead of reaching for the drink, the vape, the smoke, is there maybe you're malnourished, maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe you're not taking the right herbs to help move the energy in the gunk. Maybe you're not balanced. Maybe your pitta vata kapha is out of balance. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. But then we have herbs and different opportunities for that. We have yoga. We're going to definitely be bringing in some kriyas, some kundalini kriyas to help you tap into mind, body, spirit connection. And then, of course, the shadow work. That's really the ultimate component with the ancestral trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There's access to online stuff that'll help you with that. And then, we're going to do daily stuff. And Ali, what are you going to be talking about and sharing with everyone that's unique?
So I do a combination as well of some meditation, breath work, and emotional freedom technique or tapping. And so tapping for me is just a super simple tool that I learned and use very regularly, but I've also taught other people. So it's basically speaking into those negative patterning that we have, the negative thought patterns, and then reprogramming it with some release in our meridian systems, as well as just reconfiguring it with some positive. And that for me is just getting more deeper at the subconscious. So doing some meditation, some breath work, emotional freedom technique, and even some more somatic releasing with the bodies, what I'm going to be doing. Yeah.
Awesome. I have one more question. I'm just going to answer this one, then we're going to talk about the Break Free Challenge and wrap it up. Shallow work and shadow work, are they the same? I've never heard of shallow work, Ashraf, so I don't know what that is. It sounds interesting, though, but I would say shadow work is the opposite of shallow because shadow is making the unconscious mind, which is 95% of where we operate from unconsciously. and why your life may kind of suck right now, or your health challenges or financial or relationship issues keep repeating because you're operating from 80 to 90% of the same thought patterns and actions as yesterday, every day. So the compound effect is real. Atomic Habits, another great book to consider reading to help you break free. And what we're going to do, Ali and I'm just going to put this up on the screen now. It's called Take a Break Challenge, helping you break free. I know I had put that in the original title of this. We talked about freedom a little bit, but the main idea here is to go within to find your freedom. As within, so without, to help you break free from addictive behaviors. I'm not saying to give them up. We're just doing a 5-day break to help you, instead of with the numbing or coping mechanism, going inward, tapping into all of the things, the beautiful ancient wisdom that we're going to be sharing with you over those days. We're going to have 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. So anyone in the world can participate, Monday through Friday, December 8th through the 12th. We'll have 30-minute meditations, communications, and there will be recordings. Then Ali and I are going to tag team on 2 evening classes, Tuesday night, Thursday night, the 9th and the 11th. And this is just after a full moon. So this is going to be a really great opportunity, to leverage the energies of winter. As we're going into winter, which is coming up fast on the solstice, we have 3-eye atlas pummeling through the universal energy, bringing all that sorts of light codes from our galactic family that is also going to force your hand to work with your shadows, whether you're ready for it or not. And here's the deal. Shadow work by itself and doing it on your own, and no offense to talk therapy or grief counseling, they're fine tools. However, if you're not working with the central nervous system and going deeper inside and quieting the mind and, taking a break from all the talking, ultimately it's going to be harder. It could be more painful. And so it's a good time to jump in. That's why we did this instead of waiting for New Year's resolutions. We really wanted to serve you. So sign up today at magdalenagrace.com. And if you have any questions, you can still comment below. I will answer questions later. And you can also email info at Magdalena Grace. I have just one more thing. It's only $22. So if that's a challenge for you right now, this is even more important for you to do, because, $22 is probably going to, instead of paying for cigarettes or alcohol or whatever, you can spend money and invest on yourself, and then you get the recordings for life. And can repeat this on your own. It's kind of like my give back. I wish I would have had this 5 years ago when I was struggling and like rock bottom in my journey with addictive behaviors and toxic relationships and just lost in the sauce of the 3D world. So it's only $22. And then if you're in US only, unfortunately, no one outside of the US can partake in this. I do have microdosing psilocybin capsules if you'd like to go inward and quiet the mind with the support of a consciousness expanding medicine. That's $55. And you do need to sign up by December 2nd or 3rd, depending on where you are, so that we can ship these capsules to you. So $22, it's basically like $3 a day. If you count the weekend and being able to integrate and make whole and complete of your experience. Anything I've forgotten, Ali? Anything else that you want to add?
No, I'm just looking forward to the alchemy that you taught me and the alchemy that I've learned from within that has truly been a game changer for all the challenges that I've been dealing with in the last few weeks, as you know. Yes, truly a place for holding the grounding and support for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very timely. I guess I'll close with these thoughts because you and I were both talking about the sister wound, shutting down the feminine energy, which is this is for men too. That's a whole nother conversation. My brothers, I love you. You've all been sold a bill of goods about being the man, being strong, being whatever, but you have a feminine side too. And so the tricky part is if we all be good girls and good boys and we shove down the shadow and we don't look at it. I just watched or rewatched the Wicked movie, the first one last night with my kids, because we're getting ready to watch the second one. Mm-hmm. And now I've seen it a year later. A lot has happened in the past year in my life. So I saw it with different eyes through a different lens. And I was like, holy shit. The bad witch was considered, dark, evil. She was also fierce. She spoke up. She spoke her truth. She looked different. She was, loud and gifted and had all of these magical things about her. and they shut her down and called her evil and bad and basically kicked her out. And the good witch, who was like attracted to her and wanted to connect, that sister wound, right? It was like, oh, she tried, but they even shut her down. And ultimately, the analogy here, the metaphor is, we all have dark and light inside of us. That's why we lived in a polarized world, by the way. But again, I don't want to get into that right now. And if we don't embrace both, and that would be called non-duality, is where you honor both, the dark and the light, the shadow and the light, as we're calling it. That is what our ancestors were denied. That was shut down. And guess what? The world we have today is because of that. So we get to, for those of us who are waking up and are getting this message and want to go into that 5D and beyond world of love and light, unconditional, just everyone is flying their freak flag and everyone's accepting of everyone and everyone's unconditionally loving of everyone. I don't know if we'll have war anymore. I don't know. I'm not quite sure that I think anybody can really know, but ultimately we're coming from a place of acceptance of both sides. And so that was a great movie analogy to reiterate the importance of why we bridge the gap and alchemize the shadow and the light, the fear into love, the lack and scarcity into abundance, because that is our divine birthright. That is our gift as being fully human and fully divine. So if you keep shutting down that feminine, that darkness, that moon, that shadow, you're basically only living a half lived life.
Yes.
And so that brings it full circle if you want to watch that movie and have a better understanding. But ultimately, that's the root cause of addiction. That's the root cause of depression. That's the root cause of all of our challenges in the world, health, wealth, and relationship issues. If we were to all come together and embrace them, just think about what kind of world we would live in. So that's my hope, is to bring freedom and liberation and moksha, as they call it in the yoga world. When you're able to do that and be fully liberated in your truth, then nothing can stop you. And you'll just have more joy, bliss, peace, kindness, balance on the other side. Anything else that you want to add, Ali, as we close?
No, I think this was a beautiful conversation. And like you said, we could have so many more of these conversations, I am sure.
Yeah, we may have to come back and do a little bit more. If anyone has any thoughts, feel free to email me at info@magdalenagrace.com. Otherwise, sign up for the challenge. The deadline is, the latest you can sign up is the 8th if you're merely doing the $22 variety. And again, if you're going to commit to the microdosing capsules, US only, you'll definitely want to sign up by the 2nd or the 3rd. Thanks so much for everyone for tuning in. Until next time, here's to your best health, your best wealth, by trusting your best wisdom within yourself. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.